So I'm going to record some thoughts I have on some current events. I'm recording this in November of 2022, and this week there was some good news that we might get some tax relief for next year because all of our tax brackets, along with the standard deductions, are going to go up a lot because of all the recent inflation. I got to point out something. That only keeps us paying the same tax rate, right? That's not a tax cut. If you're making more dollars but they buy the same amount and then you have to pay the same percentage, that's not a form of relief. In fact, if anything, the higher the inflation rate actually is, the more it is being manipulated downward, right? 2 years ago, we might have had actual inflation of 4% and they were reporting 2. Now it might be closer to 18% and they're reporting 9. So if anything, our taxes are going up even more this year because you have to make 18% more income to have the same income in the first place, but your tax brackets are only going up 9%. I invite you to do the math. Pretend you made the same amount of any commodity, right? Whether it be gold, oil, food, whatever, right? If you're lucky enough to make the same amount of gold this year as you were 2 years ago, I invite you to do the math. Which year do you actually keep more of the gold? I wouldn't be surprised if your taxes went up a lot, right? One thing that we could do, and we kind of started doing this during Donald Trump, is to get rid of joint filing of taxes. I don't think the government should get involved in who marries who. Now, Donald Trump did make a step in the right direction by getting rid of deductions for alimony. I think that's a step in the right direction. That kind of acknowledges that the government shouldn't get involved in who marries who, right? So right now there's a lot of discussion about self-driving cars. Now I saw a big concern. There was a concern that, say you commute an hour to work every day and then another hour back, and now your cars can drive itself. It might become the norm to get work done during your drive into work so that instead of working 8 hours, now you're kind of expected to work 10. I gotta point out something. If you have to spend 2 hours focused on driving just in order to work, that might as well be a form of work, except that most people's passions are not on driving, right? So for example, I do tutoring and I spend an hour on the road round trip, I would say, sometimes a little bit more depending on traffic. I would much rather be spending that time tutoring because that is my passion. And then people go, no, I don't want to benefit my employer. So you'd rather throw your time down the drain driving a car, right? I'd rather be doing my passion. If the problem is you don't want your employer to benefit, you need a different line of work, right? If that's your complaint. People get very emotional about work sometimes, and I'd much rather my efforts be put to better use. Not to mention, I have a lot of difficulty with road rage issues. I drive a very old car. It's Kia Forte. It's got 140,000 miles. And I don't want to stress the engine too much, so sometimes on the highway, I'm only going 40 miles an hour, and people just mercilessly want to speed in front of me. And we have 4 lanes on the highway that I'm going on, and people still get annoyed by that. And it's one thing if they speed in front of me, but especially at nighttime, I really hate it when people flash their lights. It almost gives me a seizure. I'm gonna have to think about how to set up my car so that the flashing lights don't bother me so much. Anyway, now speaking of workplace drama. It dawned on me 2 years ago when I was working remotely. I had a lot of colleagues who refused to turn their camera on, and at first it kind of annoyed me. But then it dawned on me, if we stop turning our cameras on and stop seeing each other, especially if we can create our own profile and avatar, it might cut down on bias, especially racial and sexual bias. I don't see that to be the end of the world, right? I don't know why people complain about others not turning their cameras on. I think that's a beautiful thing. We could actually judge each other for work instead of for personal differences. Now, of course, the war in Ukraine is still going on. So next week is Mary Curie's birthday. Actually, in 2 days, November 7th is Mary Curie's birthday. She turns 155 years old today. Now, when Putin finally is executed for all his war crimes, I think it would be really poetic justice if we gave him a lethal injection of polonium-210. Just given what he's up against right now, especially when I saw Poland taking in all the Ukrainian refugees. I really thought that would be really good justice to off him with the polonium-210. Now, what would be even more poetic is if we offed him with natural polonium-210, not the stuff that comes out of nuclear reactors, but with actual polonium-210 that's extracted from uranium ore. And I'm hoping we do this on the 125th anniversary of the historic discovery. It was July 18 of 1898, so next year in July 18. Hopefully we can turn it around that quickly. I mean, we turned around Saddam Hussein in about that kind of time frame, so I just think it would be really poetic justice. I'm just throwing it out there as an idea.